I wanted to take this opportunity tonight. I know it's late, but I didn't want the day to go by without getting on here live and taking a few minutes to talk about a subject that I find troubling and I find concerning in this day and age. There's a lot of stuff going on in our nation's capital. A lot of crazy ideas have been proposed, and there's one specific ideology that became aware of, and it is deeply troubling. And I believe as Americans, we need to be aware of what's going on, especially with our elected officials. The one item that I wanted to address was with respect to what's called national divorce. It's an ideology or an idea presented by one of the representatives of our Congress, and reading into it and hearing what this representative has said, it's kind of made me think, is this something new for our modern time, for our day and age? Or are we subjecting ourselves to repeating history? And you're like, well, repeating history, what do you mean? Well, I'll explain that in just a minute. But before I do that, I want to kind of touch on what this national divorce really is. This representative, her name is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been suggesting on her Twitter feeds that we need to do a national divorce. This is the idea behind it. I'm going to talk about some of these tweets as you see them here, especially the one on the top right says, we need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. We need a national divorce. Everyone I talk to, she says this. And from the sick and disgusting woke culture issues shoved down our throats to the Democratic traitors, America, last policies. And she goes on. I'm not going to go into that, but she initially brings forth the idea that we need a national divorce. If we look at the other tweets that she has here, she goes, "Why does the left and right should they consider a national divorce? It's not a civil war." She goes, "But a legal agreement to separate our ideological and political disagreements by states while maintaining our legal union." She goes to talk about a definition of reconcilable differences. Okay. The inability to agree on most things or important things. She's saying that basically we've gotten to a point where there are irreconcilable differences between the Democrats and the Republicans. She goes, tragically, I think that we, the left and the right, have reached those irreconcilable differences. And she says, I will speak for the right and say, well, we're disgusted, we're fed up with the Democrats cramming all these things down our throat and on us and our children. Now, the one thing that she doesn't, I guess, I don't know if she doesn't want to admit it, she doesn't think about, is the fact that the Republicans are doing the exact same thing, if you think about it. Basically, the highly restrictive abortion laws that have come out, that tells you right there that they're forcing a belief or an issue down the throats of Americans, especially women, who basically the conservative party, in a nutshell, if you look at it from an outsider's point of view, they're saying, okay, we're gonna tell women this is what they got to do. We're gonna force them to make these medical decisions. You know, that's an example. I'm trying to think of another example off the top of my head. Forcing the federal government to deal with immigration. They want to pin the blame on officials that really is not their fault. And I'll get into that later, maybe another day. But she basically in her talk about this national divorce, she says, okay, red states would do this, red states would do that, red states would do this, the blue states would be free to do this and this and that. And basically she's outlining all her party's beliefs. Basically, she's saying, okay, one of the two sides is going to have to secede from the Union, basically, in a nutshell. Now, secede kind of starts making you think, it starts making you remember something about our history, am I right? Yeah. If we look back at our history, there was an event kind of similar to what Marjorie Taylor Greene is proposing, that is the U.S. Civil War. The U.S. Civil War started as a major disagreement of irreconcilable differences, well, a irreconcilable difference between, I believe, 7 of the states and the federal government. The topic of issue at the time was slavery. Okay? These 7 states became known as the Confederate States of America, or the Confederate States, or the Confederacy. Those were the names that were used at the time. These states were an unrecognized breakaway republic in the southern United States. And this existed from, during February of 1861 to May of 1865. This Confederacy was these states they declared secession, and they wanted to make war against the U.S., which was the inevitable result during the American Civil War. Okay, in this time frame, there was something developed or known as the Lost Cause of the Confederacy, or basically, for short, the Lost Cause. It's a mythology that claims that the cause for the secession was heroic, and it was justifiable, it was just, and it wasn't centered on the difference, or the irreconcilable difference that was the whole premise of this, which was slavery. Suffice it to say that upon secession, things got inevitably worse. The states rebelled, and the end result of this secession, or this division, was basically the American Civil War. You had the states battling against, the Union, what was the U.S., United States at the time. And because they were trying to preserve, basically, the rights of the slave owners, from what I remember in my U.S. history. Now, if we compare these two eras, national divorce and the secession pre-American Civil War, they're similar, they're very clear, and they're very defined. The idea, as I said, the idea of national divorce, based on Marjorie Taylor Greene's proposal, is that one of the two sides, either the red Republican states or the blue Democratic states, would basically secede, in a manner of speaking, from the direct union of the United States of America. She's talking about shrinking the government. So basically, in saying that she wants to shrink the government, she's basically saying, okay, there's going to be a secession, there's going to be a division, and it's going to be two governments. That's right there. That's the concrete definition of secession based on the occurrence of the Civil War. Okay? In our modern day, well, let me backtrack. In the era of the Civil War, the main issue was slavery. It was one central issue that they were irreconcilable. In our modern day, there are multiple issues, people, that would fall into a controversial situation, such as, for example, immigration, our southern border. The Republicans are desperate that they want the president to enforce immigration law, something that the Constitution, if we read the U.S. Constitution, we discover that it is not the president's total responsibility for the border, it is Congress. Congress has failed in 40 years to passed the necessary legislation to update our broken immigration system. And I'm not going to get into the ramifications or the details of that right now. But I mean, it's clear in this day in our history that over the course of several presidential administrations, presidents have tried to address the immigration issue directly, and all have been subject to the same thing. They've had their orders blocked by federal court judgment, and the premise of the decision on those cases has always been the same. The president does not have the legal right to change or create immigration law. So, and basically, that there is basically confirming what the Constitution says. And I'm not going to get more into that ramification because that's not what I'm trying to get to in this presentation. But either way, we have issues such as the southern border, critical race theory, or the woke theory, what do you want to call it, is another example. Homosexuality, the same-sex marriages, transgender individuals, stuff like that. Those are topics. Abortion, the incredible restriction of abortion that is going on today is another main critical main issue that could ignite the fuse of national divorce and ignite the fuse, bringing us back to another era of civil war, civil unrest in our country. We've already seen evidence of civil unrest in our times. If we go back and we remember what happened January 6th of 2021 at our nation's capital. I mean, we have substantiated video footage, live footage that was broadcast live at the time of what was going on. That was civil unrest. That was, in unclear. I mean, it was basically civil unrest. So we have evidence that corroborate that. Do we want to go back to that era? As Americans, we need to be alert to the reality of what our elected officials are doing. Ideologies such as national divorce, if we look at it now and we compare it to the Civil War, we would be making a major step backwards in our progress as a nation. Do we want to de-evolve ourselves to the times of our ancestors? I mean, these are questions that we as Americans need to ask ourselves. Do we want to evolve back to the era of our ancestors? Is this what we want as a country? Clearly, I don't think we want to go 10 steps back and not try to go 2 steps forward. I mean, to make that those steps back, that's ridiculous. Not only that, what this Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is proposing is illegal. If we read Section 18, Chapter 115, it is clear, and this is just an excerpt here that I have on my screen, but it's an excerpt that says that if anybody tries to overthrow, destroy by force the government of the U.S. or to levy war or oppose the authority of it, they should be fined under this title or imprisoned no more than 20 years. And even if we read further into this Chapter 115, it says even the mere mention is illegal. It's a crime. So what this Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing, she is, should I put it later in more blunt terms, she's breaking the law, people. It's only a matter of time before somebody in hires up, like the Justice Department or whatever oversight, keeps deals with him, comes and basically, charges her for treason. Do we want our nation to get to that point? We don't. We want as a nation, we want to progress forward, people. We don't want to go backwards. We've already seen in the Civil War what happened. We already know through our history that everything that occurred with the Civil War, the pain, the deaths, everything that. Do we want to digress ourselves as a nation and go back to that? Clearly, I don't think we do. I don't think we do. I don't think we, it's an option for us. Are we any? We have to be. We must be more intelligent and better than our ancestors to come to this conclusion. Well, I mean, we need to wake up and we need to make our elected officials accountable. I mean, I think now is no longer the time of looking at our elected officials under a banner of political beliefs, people. I think now, more than anything, we need to look at our elected officials and see whether or not what they're doing is ethically correct, morally correct, socially correct, and is it legal? Otherwise, if we don't hold them into account, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And I think that accountability in these areas is more crucial now than ever for the betterment of our country. This is what I wanted to bring before you. This is what I wanted to share, and I hope that this has been informative, because that was my intent. My purpose was to make you guys aware as citizens of this country where our elected officials are taking us to. And I believe that now more than ever we need to hold them accountable. I encourage you, if this presentation has made you a little more aware, that you consult with your elected official, with your representative and your senator, and say, dude, we need to stop this. We need to correct our course now. There's a lot of stuff going on. And if we don't hold them accountable, it's going to get worse. Well, thank you for your time, and I hope that this is informative, and I will see you guys on another occasion here on Twitter. Thank you.